Am I the asshole for leaving a birthday party because I couldn't eat my food inside? My friend group had a surprise party for one of our friends last night. Kim offered to host the party at her house and make the food for it. The rest of us would just show up right after getting off work to decorate and set up. Kim is vegan, which is fine and dandy. The only problem is I have a soy allergy. Kim knows about this. I never expect her to go out of her way to alter what she makes for my sake. There's just an agreement between us that it's not very often I can eat what she makes because she uses a lot of soy-based condiments and substitutes. However, since this was a party taking place after work and was supposed to last a while, I asked Kim if she could hold off on certain legumes and the like in at least one thing she makes so I could eat while at the party. She said she would try. For my part, I packed myself an extra lunch to keep in a cooler throughout the day. It didn't consist of any meat, but there were eggs and items made with mayo or yogurt. I intended to eat it before the party started while decorating, but I wasn't hungry at that point. Once the party started, I did munch on some cut-up vegetables, but they weren't cutting it and I got really hungry. Kim had made 2 things of mashed potatoes, but she couldn't remember which bowl had been made with soy milk and which had been made with almond milk. I went out to my car and brought my pack inside so I could eat something. Kim came over to me and said she could smell the mayo and told me to eat in my car, that she was fine that I wasn't eating what she had made, but I knew she has a vegan household and doesn't allow non-vegan foods in. Mind you, it's January, nighttime, and cold as hell outside. I wasn't going to argue with her because it was her house and didn't want to ruin the party by addressing the issue right there. But I also didn't want to have to speed eat while sitting in my car or make frequent trips outside just to snack, so I said goodbye to our friend whose birthday it was and left. A couple hours later I started getting a bunch of texts asking why I had left so early in the night. I said it was because I was hungry, but some of our friends kept pushing because they had seen me come inside with my pack after saying I was grabbing food, so I was honest with them that it was because Kim told me to go eat in my car. Some of our friends are split now and think Kim should have been willing to be flexible since it was at night and really cold outside, and others are siding with her. Kim is just mad and thinks I started drama on purpose. Am I the asshole for leaving after she told me to eat in my car? Not the asshole, and she is one of the reasons that vegans have such a bad rep. It's not rocket science to prepare at least one dish that you can eat and to remember which dish that was. You know. Put a post-it on it. Put a purple spoon. Something. Or, make everything with almond milk instead of soy milk for one night. Not the asshole. I understand not wanting non-vegan foods in her home, but Kim isn't a good host or a good friend. You remained tactful and tried to save face for Kim, but she shot herself in the foot by brushing you off without a second thought. Not the asshole. She, the vegan who wants you to eat outside because she wants her rules followed, can't be bothered to remember which bowl has soy. I would have left too. Not the asshole. Kim is a poor hostess. She didn't have food you could eat. Didn't even try to ensure she knew what potatoes were free from soy. Vegans shouldn't throw parties at home if they have strict vegan households. That's really immature to ignore a guest's food allergy and force them to eat in a dark, cold car. She's the problem and she has bad manners. Not the asshole. Kim was incredibly inconsiderate here in several ways. Only having mashed potatoes for you in the first place, not paying enough attention to keep track of the one thing you could eat, and placing her dietary choice over your allergy and asking you to eat outside, even though the only reason you were eating your food in her house was because of her fuck up. The entire situation is on her. She does not sound like a good friend, a good host, or a good person. Am I the asshole for asking to be paid for 6 months of constant dog sitting? My sister, Alice, owns a flat with her husband and they have 2 dogs. Alice got a job abroad, so they are moving there. They don't know what to do with the 2 dogs yet, so their current plan is to move abroad and wait a few months, up to 6, to decide if they even like it there or if they want to come back home. If they like it there, they will try to find a way to move the dogs there with them, but if it's not possible, they will rehome them in our country. I'm 21 still attending university and I live with my mom. I really want to move out and live alone, but I can't afford it. Alice made me an offer. I can live in their flat for free for 6 months, no rent, no utilities, but I have to take care of their dogs. I'll have to walk them for hours every day, take them to the vet, etc. She said they will pay for anything dog-related and will pay for doggy daycare for a few days during my exam periods or if I want to go on a vacation. I like her offer. Her flat is much closer to my university, but taking care of 2 dogs is a lot of work. I think it's reasonable to want to be paid for the work I do. If I didn't have to take care of the dogs, I could get a part-time job, if I wanted to. So I feel like I should be reimbursed for that. Alice and our mom says that being allowed to live in her flat for free is already enough and I'm being unreasonable and money hungry. When they told me this, I laughed at them and told my sister she could try to find another dog sitter then, and I know I'm her best option. Now they are mad at me. Am I the asshole? Update. Okay, I fucked up. I really thought Alice didn't have any other options. My brother just told me she is now talking to our cousin, who lives 2 hours away, but wants to move to our city. They are even talking about possibly making it a long-term thing and cousin being allowed to stay after the free 6 months is up for reduced rent, only having to pay an equal amount to their mortgage, which would normally only rent him a room. You are the asshole. You will live rent-free and utilities-free, alone in a flat closer to your uni. Try googling how much you'd have to cough up in cash to do the same and bam, that's how much you are paid for dogsitting. With current economy situation, I imagine the sum won't come up low. You do realize how much rent for even a basic apartment costs, right? Plus water, electricity, and internet bills? And on top of that there will be no personal costs for the dogs. That's way more money in bills than you would be getting paid in dog-sitting money anyways, even if she did for some reason agree, and you really wanted to move out, right? Well, unfortunately now you are not getting that option, because she is going to get another sitter now that you have shown yourself off to be ungrateful of an offer most wouldn't give, and kind of an idiot for burning such a good offer. Plenty of people would kill for 6 months of free living with the only cost of time spent taking care of dogs. You are very much replaceable there. You are the asshole. Op is reeking. I have never worked a job in my life. Vibes. You are the asshole. You are the asshole. I think it's reasonable to want to be paid for the work I do. They are paying you with free room and board, as well as utilities. I don't know how one covers the cost of gas, water, electric, etc. in countries outside of the US. I'd maybe look at how much renting their home would be, and compare that to how much you'd be paid to dogsit. Pretty sure you are the asshole here, and kind of a dumbass as well. Am I the asshole for taking up space at a restaurant? I, 27M, often go out to eat alone. It's never an issue for me since I am usually sat at bars or at a table for 2. Recently I wanted to go to a new place that had opened in the area. I went alone but the hostess lead me to a table for 4. I asked if they had smaller tables or a bar to sit at since I didn't want to take up a spot for larger groups. She said this was their smallest table and they don't do bar seating. The restaurant wasn't super busy, but definitely picking up as it was dinner time. While I was waiting on my food the attendance picked up big time and there were people sitting outside waiting. I noticed at the host stand an older woman, man, 2 younger adults and a kid were crowded around and the woman pointed directly at me. I tried to ignore it since my food was about to come out. While I was eating, the group from earlier were sat in a booth not far from me. The lady who pointed at me made a loud comment about how selfish young people can be. How some people are so entitled they take things from others without a care. Then I felt something hit my neck. It was a wadded up straw wrapper. I turned to look where it came from and noticed everyone at that table was glaring at me, except the kid who was oblivious. I wouldn't say I have social anxiety, but I am non-confrontational, so I went back to my food. Then the unthinkable happened. The lady came over and asked for one of the chairs at my table, saying they squeezed 5 into a booth and just wanted a chair for the kid. Before I could get an answer out since I was chewing, a server walked by. "Oh no ma'am, we can't have the chairs moved around. Safety with the walkways. Well, why does one person need 3 extra chairs? I have a kid suffering and his parents horribly uncomfortable because you sat one guy at a table when you could have just given his food to go." The server told her she needed to sit back down, but she kept ranting, "Oh, I'd love to sit comfortably at a table too big for me. It must be so nice knowing I'm ruining another family's dinner." At this point the hostess interjected and the server left. The hostess tried to shoo her back to her table, but the lady kept demanding an extra chair. "Ma'am, you told us to sit you in the first table that opened. The manager and I told you it would be a squeeze and you still wanted it. Either you take this table or you can leave." The lady finally grumbled her way back to sitting and I finished my meal, paid, and got the hell out. She was definitely unhinged. But I'm stuck wondering if I'm the asshole here for taking up a space meant for more people. Not the asshole. The hostess knew you were alone and sat you at a 4 top because they don't have 2s or bar seating. They can't reasonably turn you away for being alone or force you to have takeout. The family squeezed into a booth was in the wrong before throwing the wadded-up straw wrapper at you. No, not the asshole. You asked for a smaller space and did your due diligence to try to accommodate others. If the restaurant couldn't seat you somewhere smaller, that's on them. You shouldn't be punished for eating alone. Why would someone else deserve a table just because they came with more people in a group? You got there first. You were a paying customer and you were sitting where you were asked to sit. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. You are good. If the restaurant's smallest table is a 4-top, then that's the smallest spot they have for fewer than 4 people. The hostess seated you there. Where else were you to sit? You are allowed to eat out alone, and I don't mean take out. I'm actually impressed about the server not allowing the chair at the end of the booth. She's right as far as safety and walkways. The server and the hostess handled this very well. My only issue is with the straw paper. I am confrontational, and someone at that table would have been wearing at least a glass of water in retaliation. Winking face. Not the asshole, she's the one everyone was wishing would leave, not you. Am I the asshole for serving my family food from the trash? For context, my sister and I grew up relatively poor. When I was 6, our mom took a promotion and moved 3 hours away. We found out in our adult life, she had been hoarding her money and giving our alcoholic father a small allowance to raise us. With his addiction problems, it left us minimal money for essentials. By the time I was 16, we were technically on our own and was ransacking dumpsters to feed myself and my sister. I'm now in my late 30s, have a successful career and live quite comfortably. My sister is also well off now. My wife and I have a great relationship. I've worked to stop some of my old habits from my upbringing. Some of my penny-pinching techniques, my wife graciously ignores and lets me save our money where I can. However, there's one issue: we always can't find a compromise. I can't handle when food is thrown out. Our daughter, 12, wanted chickens last year. That ended up being a good idea, since our table scraps would go to them instead of being wasted to the trash. For the record, I hate when my wife shops at Costco. She buys too much for our family, which creates a lot of waste. I've asked her to at least donate what we don't eat, or give it to me and I can drop it off to a homeless camp near my job. She promised to just buy less quantity, but that didn't last because she doesn't like grocery shopping more than once a week. Last week I came home and found a sealed pack of lettuce, 1 whole cucumber, an entire loaf of bread, and potatoes in the trash can outside. The lettuce was expired, but looked fine. The bread was also expired, but had no mold. The potatoes had eyes, but weren't green or rotten yet. I went inside and started on dinner. I grilled chicken, which was the only item not from the trash. I made a salad and added the cucumber, used the bread to make croutons. And finally, I made mashed potatoes. We all sat down to eat. My wife mentioned how great the food was. I told her it was what she had thrown out earlier that day. She was completely mortified and grossed out. I told her I washed everything off before cooking it, but she said that didn't matter. My point was, if the food was good enough for us to eat, it should have not been thrown out. At bare minimum, she could have given it to our daughter to take to the chickens. She argued back, that I should have taken it from the trash and to the chickens, not to our table. She was irritated with me, fearing we all would have food poisoning or something. But none of us got sick from the food. She said regardless, it was wrong for me to prove a point in that manner and borderline abuse to serve the family food from the trash. I don't really see what I did wrong. There are starving people in this world, and for us to throw out perfectly fine food just doesn't sit right with me. Am I the asshole? You are the asshole. You need to find ways for you to heal from your childhood trauma without digging food out of the trash. Just because you were okay this time doesn't mean that wasn't a bad decision, especially feeding it to your family without their consent. You are the asshole. She is right. There is so much bacteria in a trash can, you can quit well poison your family. Just because it looks good and tastes good, doesn't mean it is. If it was laying around in the kitchen, past date, that would be fine, but it was already in the trash. Info. Were you actually concerned about food waste, or did you just want to stick it to your wife? You say that it should have been fed to the chickens rather than be thrown out, but that's not what you did, is it? You could do the grocery shopping yourself. Then there wouldn't be any waste, and you wouldn't have to nag her anymore. Maybe a little underhanded, but I also grew up poor, and this would not have fazed me at all.